The gospel here today always reminds me of the bell that I have hanging in my office that says "Never ring the bell." It was the homily. The bell refers to the Navy SEALs bell, and with the gospel with sacrifice, and so it just if we're in a maybe a season in our life right now in our vocation, right, where we're tempted to reach for the bell, we're tempted to not sacrifice. Maybe we pray with this. Maybe we go back and listen to the homily of never ringing the bell, because we know, like within vocation, within life, like it's the ebb and flows of reaching for the bell, the sacrifice, and but under the first reading, Genesis. So I haven't been preaching on the Genesis that much here the last couple of days. We really haven't been here the last few days, but we have right here, right after the flood. We're in chapter 9. And the flood account with Noah is really kind of a culmination of the increasing mess that's caused by human sinfulness, right? Began in Genesis chapter 3. We're in chapter 9 right now. Genesis chapter 3. We know with the fall of Genesis chapter 3. Chapter 4, the next chapter, we have the first murder, brotherly murder nonetheless. Cain kills his brother Abel. Chapter 5 in Genesis then makes the connection between Adam and brings the genealogy all the way to Noah. That's what's happened in Genesis chapter 5. Genesis chapter 6, it gets to the point where there's kind of this killer verse that says, God saw that every inclination of the thoughts of human hearts was evil continually. And it says he had sorrow for the corruption. He had sorrow of seeing the damage and the effects of sin. And he saw the brokenness and had the sorrow. And what happened was the flood. He wiped out. He saw the righteousness and the faithfulness of Noah and his family. But it was basically a fresh start. And then here's chapter 9 today. The waters dry up. Here's Noah, and we see the covenant that's made. The covenant, first covenant was with a couple, Adam and Eve. Now we see the covenant expanding to Noah and a family. So remember, the whole arc of the Bible is speaking a language of covenant. This is a very pivotal time now in the course of salvation history. This is the second covenant that God makes. He extends that covenant now to a family. And we know, of course, what the further covenants with David's covenant, David, and then last the covenant with Jesus. But he knows the inclination of the human heart at this point and says, I promise to never do that again, to wipe out all peoples. I know the inclination of the human heart. I know the concupiscence, the tendency to sin. And he promises to not do that again. He promises, so what that is, it's his continual pursuit, him making good, if you will, his working out of our salvation when we turn away from God. And what's interesting, our lectionary doesn't pick this up, but just after God makes his covenant now, what do we see right away? Remember who Noah was? It says that Noah was a righteous man. He walked with God. Right after this verses where we picked it up, what happens? Noah enters into a vineyard and he gets drunk. And so it's pointing back to Genesis. It's pointing back to Genesis chapter 3 of the fall with Adam and Eve. Noah then, who was a man who was righteous and walked with the Lord, God chose him to make a covenant with the people to continue. And Noah gets drunk. He takes of the fruit of the vine, just like Adam and Eve. And then he's lying there in his nakedness. And then what happens? You have, I think it's Ham, who sleeps with his mother. Right? The messiness of sin, the downward spiral of sin. God continues to remain faithful to his covenant, even in the thick muck of mess. God's faithful to his people, and he seeks us out for relationship. And so maybe just for us, it's like, big brokenness in our lives, big brokenness in our families. Like, we can often wonder, can God work in this brokenness? Can God work in this brokenness of my life? Can he work in the brokenness of my family's life or previous generations? Remember the covenant. What's a covenant? It's not a contract. Contract is, I'll do for you so as long as you do for me. I'll pay the money for the car so long as you give me the car, make good on the contract. A covenant, throughout the whole Bible, covenant is not a contract. The covenant is, I'll do for you what I said I'd do for you, even when you don't do for me what you said you'd do for me. And it's culminated here at this Mass, the new covenant of Christ giving his body for us, for salvation, giving us a new heart. And so as we come up for communion today to receive him, what's the idea or what's the reality that's taken place? God, the new covenant, God gives of his very body for us, for our salvation. What are we to do? We're to renew the covenant in our heart to him today when we receive him. Is to say, I renew my yes to you. I renew my surrender to you, my entire being, for your faithfulness, Lord, of what you've done for me, of giving your body to me for my salvation. And so we want to renew that covenant today with him. We also want to remember not to ring the bell.